On this week's episode of By the Numbers, join us as we take a look at data reliability. If Fed Chair Jerome Powell is signaling that the data may be unreliable, what does that mean for ITR's forecasting and for yours? For now, sit back, relax, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lyndsay.
How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. I feel like we should start today by addressing the elephant in the room.
The many tiny elephants.
In the room. Today marks our final episode of By the Numbers.
Yes.
We have had quite a fun year.
It's been a great run.
Yeah.
This has been a really cool project and
Really
so fun
cool.
to work on this together. And I think at the end of the day, we're at a point now that we've largely accomplished what we set out to do.
I agree.
Which is cut through the noise.
It was such a headline-making year.
Yes.
From everything from Taylor Swift to tariffs and a contentious election in between, which was really what was driving the need for a show like this. And I've had so much fun doing this with you. And we're so grateful for all of you who have joined us week in and week out. And if you've paid close enough attention to at least the video portion of these episodes, you've probably seen some of these characters make an appearance over the last year or so. So we invited everybody for a comeback today.
We did. And these really represent our producers who aren't on camera. This is kind of their, I don't know, little bit to be on
a little
screen.
Easter egg in every episode. It's always fun for us to walk in here and see what's
I know, I love
hidden.
to see who's out here when we come in, but it is kind of a nod to the whole team that we have behind us as we've been putting this show out. And we're not done yet. We're going to do a lot of other fun stuff. And I think we have an article today that kind of brings this all, not to a close, right? It's not saying that there aren't going to still be headlines to cut through, but just this like phase, right, of the project of getting data out there, getting numbers to cut through headlines. I think this kind of brings it full circle in the way that we set out to do about a year ago.
Yeah,
so,
I agree. This was a good article find on your part. And I loved that it kind of wrapped together in the story of what By the Numbers has been for so many people and for us.
Yeah.
A lot of really great research comes out of preparing for this show. So the headline, there was many of them, but the headline in question today is Fed Chief Powell is starting to worry about the reliability of the economic data. And really, we run our business off of data. We are that stake in the ground to plan for based on data, based on as close to facts as you can get. So what this article draws into question is, what do you do when that data is potentially unreliable?
right. Yes.
Yeah. What kind of decisions are made based off of data, not just as a client of ITR's, but the Fed, that's why we're talking about it from Jerome Powell's point of view.
Right. And he went, did his, regular testimony in front of Congress last week. And a couple of the quotes that came out, they were concerning because the Fed, they are literally, we call them data driven. That's the motto, the catchphrase we come back to time and time again with them. So I did pull out a couple of quotes from Chair Powell. The one that I think makes the headlines here is he wrote, quote, "The data is going to become more volatile and less reliable. That'll make it more difficult for the private sector and for you and for us meaning the Fed."
Right.
And so when we read that, we started this project to say, all right, let's cut through the emotion. Let's use the numbers. Let's use the data. But if we don't have that North Star, what do we have, right? How do we even make decisions? Do we just throw our hands up and say, we can't do it anymore? And I hope we've learned at the end of all of this that no, there is still data out there. It's now a question of not just what do the headlines say versus the data, but how do we not cherry pick, right? How do we look at a more holistic survey of economic trends, of these broad, big picture things that are happening, and find the, maybe not every indicator is in agreement all the time, but generally there's a story. We just need to tease it out from the hard evidence. And Powell did have another quote. He called it a quote, very mild degradation of the scope of the surveys. So putting this all in context, and it really relates back to an episode we ran a couple of weeks ago about really the cuts to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and other groups, and what does that mean for our data? At the end of the day, we still have data. That's the good news and the great takeaway. But we just have to be very thoughtful as we use it. That's really what we're doing. I put up a simplified version of kind of how we look at this. This is just a list of 5, but we have, like I said, I think it's up to 15,000 indicators now in our database. It just, that number keeps growing and I can't keep up with it. But a couple of the big leading indicators that we look at, how close do they come to, in this case, U.S. industrial production, that bellwether that we look at for the industrial economy. So you can see a lead time between 2 and 4 quarters for all of these, and just kind of played red light, green light. What says up, what says down is the PMI right now. That used to be one of our favorite indicators. Now it's a little bit discordant with some of the others. Is there a reason? Maybe. And if you look at the real trend, it's not outright falling. So it maybe just is showing more limited growth. But we look at this for, what does the holistic picture here say? To me, this is upturn. Right? This is things starting to lift off, some of our most trusted, farthest looking leading indicators, not all in perfect agreement, but for the most part showing that rise. And we revise this list constantly. We're coming up with new leading indicators. Our research team here is so good at saying, what can we kind of put together, right? How can we create, like our retail sales leading indicator, that was created since I've been here at ITR.
Yeah, me too. I remember it coming out.
And it's so fun to say, all right, we've got a new one and it's showing the same signal. And if it goes out of tune, we'll go back to the components. We'll say, what can we adjust here? How can we get at, again, not cherry picking, but packaging together that holistic view. That's what we're really trying to do at ITR.
Yeah. Going back to CPI, May's CPI was better than expected. We're kind of talking about these revisions that we see.
Right.
That may or may not come. So May's CPI was better than expected, but if that data is imputed, is that reliable? What that is showing is a cooling of inflation.
Exactly.
So is that really what we see happening?
Well,
here?
And here's where we get those 2 different inflation metrics starting to move in different directions. When the PCE came in, that actually was a little higher than the market had expected. It was, both of these, by the way, are really right where ITR had thought they would be. So we're not losing any sleep. But
love that.
The core PCE came in 2.7%. That's not 2%. That's not where the Fed wants it to be. Is that one more kind of arrow in the quiver for no rate cuts in the near term? Now, again, we think that for other reasons in addition to just that one data point. So in some cases, these cherry-picked bits of information help our case. They don't hurt it. But generally, again, the Fed is taking a long-term approach. They're taking a real breather here on rates. They want to see the impact of tariffs, which we know haven't come through yet. They want to see still where labor market and wage pressures are pushing this. We know there's more to come there. So does that 1 month of data matter? Unless you're like day trading the bounce in the stock market, which I hope our viewers are not doing. Does it matter? I don't know. I don't think it changes my whole story.
So even hearing, though, that PCE number is closer and closer to 2% than it has been in the past, that still signals this word cooling. But we are sitting here wrapping up the month of June and heading into the second half of 2025, which we have been shouting from the rooftops for quite some time, that ITR is calling on a resurgence of inflation. Have we changed that stance based on any of this data?
No, we absolutely have not. We do, and even start to see in something like that PCE number, we're starting to see the early signs of inflation picking back up, not continuing down, not continuing to cool. So I think once you have that holistic system of leading indicators showing the rise that I just had up on screen, showing those additional pulls on pricing, there's a lot more reason to see this coming than just let's straight line project based on the past couple months of data.
Like we needed any more uncertainty in this year, but how do you recommend that folks plan around this? I mean, even if you just kind of narrow the scope to specifically the Fed's rate cut decision.
Sure.
If you're a business leader looking to invest in your business, if you're an individual looking to take out a mortgage right now, like what is the overarching guidance that we are giving to folks out there when there's uncertainty.
When there's so much noise.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start by saying we at ITR, we want to keep cutting through the noise. This show is not the only way we're doing that. So if you're worried about the Fed, I'd encourage you to check out Fed Watch. It comes out every Friday. Just quick, like 5-minute show. If you're used to this longer form, it's not going to take up as much of your time.
Much more digestible.
But we're going to cut through some of that noise there and see what the Fed is doing, how they're using this. But I think we've set up the kind of framework for how they're making these decisions. It's not just, last month of data on inflation went down, we can cut rates, right? They're never going to make those quick, knee-jerk, short-term reactions as much as the market changes the odds wildly. So I would say don't be caught up with the herd. Don't be caught up in the swings of sentiment. Sentiment is our biggest enemy right now.
So true.
Because it gets swayed by the headlines. But look at, all right, not just where is inflation, but what are the drivers for inflation? Let's step back. Do we see those going up or down? Clearly, they are to the upside right now. So what does that tell us for Fed policy? Something very different than I think just catching the headline inflation numbers does. At some point, it's tough for me to give this advice because it is saying you have to either dig down yourself a little bit deeper or just know, like we're signaling, we will do this analysis. There are economists who do this every day. But I think it is something that folks can follow themselves. If they want to look at kind of that dashboard like we put out, like we have on our website, how do you follow what matters most? It's just a matter of doing it, of getting into the data every day, of seeing beyond the headlines into that holistic view of the numbers, not just one number.
I think that anybody that has taken the time out of their day to tune into this episode, to tune into the Fed Watch, to tune into the Trends Talk, to meet with somebody from ITR and forecast their own business, I commend those people because those are not the folks who want to go with the herd and stay comfortable. Those are the folks who believe in looking ahead and seeing what's coming next before everybody else so that they can take advantage of those opportunities. And if we've helped one more person in this year, become a believer in forecasting, and if there's one person out there who's sat in the discomfort of the business cycle and listened to ITR's guidance and gotten uncomfy and felt over their skis, but then had success from it, then the show was a success.
I agree completely. I hope we've had that impact.
Yeah, that's certainly what we've been here to do. So, as always, thanks for coming in and hanging out with all of us.
All of us and all of the rest of the team.
Yeah, for one last episode of...
Thank you. This has been really fun.
This has been so fun, and just everything that it has brought to me, being able to work with you and being able to learn from you. I can't even begin to describe the way my brain functions differently from having sat with you in this room in a very good way.
This has been a really great experience, and I'm so proud of what we've built and the kind of framework for decision making that I think we've put out there into the world. It's been a great ride, Lyndsay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. And thank all of you for listening in there with us as we take you through the numbers. Bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lyndsay.